Next tonight, Tony Robinson's in Essex discovering some wildlife secrets in a most unusual location.
Can I give you a hand, Harry?
No, you're all right, thanks, Mum. I'm a bit of a dab hand with a knife and fork. Can't you tell?
Just 59p a pound at Safeway.
Hi, my name's Barry.
Cut! Peter Newman, take two.
Hi, I'm Barry Bethel, and this is the Peter Newman Factory Shop. If you've never been here, you don't know what you're missing. Thousands of brand-name shoes, all at discount prices. The Peter Newman Factory Shop, Thanet Way, Herne Bay and Northdown Road, Cliftonville.
Breastfeeding in public, just one of the issues tackled by Richard and Judy in half an hour.
If you want to know what's good for you, you need to be clued up about what's new on the health front. From revolutionary treatments at the cutting edge of medical science to ancient and alternative therapies, plus no-nonsense advice on diets and nutrition. Tuesdays at 6:30, watch Meridian if you want to know what's good for you.
Essex has got a lot of secrets, but they don't come much more closely guarded than Foulness. It's on the eastern edge of Essex, and very, very few people are allowed inside it, because it's owned by the Ministry of Defence, and it's where they test all their bombs and bullets and torpedoes and anything that goes bang, really.
Circuit, stand by. 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Now, you might think any wild creatures round here would be blasted to pieces, but you'd be wrong. It can be very noisy, but the animals don't seem to mind. The disruption caused by the testing is pretty limited. In fact, Foulness Island is one of the least disturbed places in Essex because it's a no-man's land. The island is 7,500 acres in size, but the actual testing site is only 300 acres. All the rest is farmed using conservation methods. It's a strange sanctuary, but there's all sorts of animals here, including 3,000 hares. One way of getting away from all the noise is to go underground. Apart from a short time in spring when they court and mate, moles live solitary lives. They're fiercely territorial and intolerant of other moles. Occasionally they fight to the death, but their brief battles usually end in a rapid retreat in opposite directions. Moles spend most of their time patrolling their tunnels, looking for something to eat. Worms are a favourite food. This one has definitely chosen the wrong place to drop in. Moles are virtually blind, but their sense of smell is excellent. Their hearing is acute, and they can feel the smallest vibrations through the ground. Above ground, in the meadows and old grassland, the lush and varied vegetation attracts a huge variety of insect life, including the caterpillars of several moths and butterflies. They have orchids here too, and lots of them. Sadly, they don't have the rare military orchid, but in June, thousands of spotted orchids flower in the shadow of one of the watchtowers behind the sea walls. To encourage water birds, 3 large shallow ponds have been dug in the meadows, and it's not just a family of swans which have made the most of them. Avocets are very rare, but they have them here, as well as more common species like oystercatchers. Avocets like sheltered, undisturbed coastal lagoons. This would hardly seem a suitable place for them, but they don't mind all the noise and smoke. It's human interference they can't tolerate. About 300 of these delicate birds overwinter here, and a few now stay to breed. An island in the middle of a pond is a relatively secure place to nest, but out on the firing range it's not so safe. Guns aren't a problem, but predators can be. Stoats are fierce hunters and can kill rabbits twice their own weight. They're also opportunists and very fond of eggs. But pheasants' eggs are tricky. They're too big for a stoat to get its teeth into, and their shells are strong. Stoats have a reputation for rolling pheasants' eggs away from the nest. It's been suggested that they do this in order to eat undisturbed in some quiet hideaway. But it's more likely that they nudge it while trying to crack the shell, and that starts the egg rolling. There's an exceptional number of stoats on Foulness Island. No one really knows why. It's just one of the island's many secrets. The local kestrels see what goes on. They have incredibly sharp eyesight, but they're only interested in spotting prey, like mice and voles. When they have young, the birds need to catch up to 8 small mammals a day. This one has 4 chicks in a hollow tree. Both parents feed their brood. This is the female. She lacks the blue-grey head, rump and tail of the male. Although their main prey is mice, voles and young rats, kestrels also catch birds, frogs, insects and earthworms. While the chicks are young, the adults tear up the food for them into manageable mouthfuls. These nestlings are about a week old. It'll be a further 3 weeks before they'll have grown flight feathers and are ready to leave the nest. Until then, the adults must hunt non-stop, and for dozens of mice and voles, time is running out. It's out over the water and mud flats that the artillery shells and missiles are fired. It's one of the most dangerous parts of the no-go area, yet it's this area beyond the sea walls that's world famous for wildlife. And it's all down to the mud. Not a very pretty name, is it, Foul Ness? But when you're walking across this stuff, it seems fairly accurate because there's millions of bacteria in the mud and they release their gases and it makes quite a pond. But that isn't actually the reason why the place is called Foul Ness. Originally, it was Foul Ness FOWL, the place of the birds. In this case, waders and water birds. Oyster catchers gather here in large flocks during the winter. The curlew is Britain's biggest wading bird. Both birds eat earthworms, snails and insects during the summer, but in winter the ground is too hard for their probing bills. The mud flats never freeze solid because they're covered twice daily by the sea, so the birds can search for marine worms and mollusks even in the coldest weather. Black-headed gulls don't have long bills, so they use their feet to stir up small crustaceans. It's pretty dangerous round here. Well, obviously it is because you might get hit on the head by a big bomb or something, but also because the mud and the tides are quite treacherous. But the people who work here, they have to get out on the mud and do their work, and so they've got these little mini hovercrafts. And today, they've said they'll take me out for a skim. My destination is a small island off the tip of Foul Ness. It may look insignificant, but it's an important breeding ground for some of our rarer birds. No one is allowed here without special permission. Even the scientists working with the MOD only come out here once during the breeding season. I feel very privileged to have been allowed to join them. This little cockle shell and gravel island looks natural, doesn't it? But it's not. All this stuff was barged here from Hastings by the Maplin Airport Authority because they wanted to work out whether it would be possible to put an airstrip down here. But then the idea for Maplin Airport was knocked on the head, and so the airstrip was never finished, which is probably a good thing because it's been sinking ever since. And as you can see, it's got this big kink in the end of it. Mind you, it is still used as a runway. Not by planes, though, by common terns and sandwich terns. Hundreds of them. Terns are pretty rare in Britain because they only breed on sandy coasts, shingle beaches and islands that are deserted, and there's precious few habitats like that left. You have to be ever so careful around here because there's eggs and baby birds everywhere and you can hardly see them. Don't want to squash this little sandwich tern, do I? Terns lay their eggs in a scrape in the ground. Their eggs and chicks are beautifully camouflaged to conceal them from predators. I'm here with Maurice Adcock to carry out the annual chick count and ring those which are big enough.
Well, here's a young sandwich tern. Smaller than the one you've got there, but it's still large enough to ring. This one will run when we put it down because it's quite large.
Maurice has been keeping an eye on the colony ever since the island was built. He makes sure the birds are disturbed as little as possible. The number of terns has increased recently because many of their breeding sites around our shores are now fully protected. It's incredible. Among all the clamouring birds and squawking chicks, the parents and young actually manage to meet up. And that's crucial, because the chicks depend on their parents for food for at least 4 weeks. By autumn, all the terns will have left. They spend the winter on the tropical coast of West Africa. Winter in the tropics and summer in Essex. What more could a bird want? The MOD is just as concerned about the animals in the mud as those on land. When they learnt that one creature was in serious trouble, they allowed bike boys onto the mudflats. These bikers are from the Essex Sea Fisheries Committee. Pretty cool, huh? Oh, perhaps not. Their bikes are the only vehicles allowed out here, apart from the MOD's Lance missile carriers, which now have a new job picking up spent artillery shells. Joss Wiggins and Tony Talbot are searching for shells too, but they're hoping to find live ones. They're after cockles. The number of these molluscs, particularly the larger ones, have dropped drastically in recent years. Without mature breeding individuals, the population has no hope of recovery. It's a laborious job, but the only way to estimate the population as a whole is to divide a large area of mud into square feet and then count the number of cockles per square foot.
All seem to be 2-year-olds. That's 9 2-year-olds.
It's not really Hell's Angel stuff, this, is it?
Not quite, no.
Why are you doing it?
Well, the cockle stocks are coming under so much pressure now with more efficient fishing methods that it's necessary to increase the surveys and monitoring of the stocks.
The shell collectors only have a limited time out on the mud. They must return to land before the tide comes in. Joss and Tony cover an area of 20 square miles and travel 90 miles up and down the mud flats each season. People do some strange things in Essex. I wouldn't mind to go on the bikes, though. Britain's cockling centre is Leigh-on-Sea, next door to Southend. Until recently, cockles were still gathered by traditional methods. The men manually raked them up and collected them in handmade baskets. Sadly, times have changed. The cockle sheds are organised much in the same way as they have been for years, but there's been a massive change in fishing techniques. The new boats use suction pumps and they suck the cockles off the sea floor just like they're enormous hoovers. 3 or 4 years ago, there was this massive explosion in the demand for cockles. I think it's because people have grown more health conscious and so they want to eat more fish. Anyway, it meant that the fishermen could swap their old wooden boats for metal ones, and they bought their new suction pumps. And in 1992, this little fleet of 14 boats sucked up 25,000 tonnes of cockles. That's 75% of all the cockles sold in Britain. Of course, this meant there was a rapid decline in the number of cockles that there were under the sea. So the fisheries department and the fishermen got together and they agreed that they'd only fish between June and December each year, 2 days a week, from 12 midday to 8 AM the next morning. Even so, each boat can still bring up between 12 and 20 tonnes of cockles every day they fish. The cockles go through a grid at the top of the dredge head, then a riddle. Only the larger ones, those over 14 millimetres across, which are at least a year old, are caught. The rest go back over the side. I couldn't work out why the machine only sucked up pure cockles, so I asked the skipper, Steve Medal. It amazes me that it's just cockles coming out of this machine. There's no bits of rock or anything, hardly any mussels. Why is that?
Well, mainly it's just pure cockles that are on the ground. Sometimes we work places where there is the occasional mussels and whelks, but this particular ground is just basically cockles there.
Once the boat's full, it's time to head back to Leigh-on-Sea. The tons of cockles are unloaded immediately the ship docks and taken straight away to the cockle sheds. Here, they're cooked in hot water for 4 minutes. The whole process is highly mechanised and everything's kept scrupulously clean. Once cooked, the shells open up so the flesh can be mechanically shaken free, or shucked out as it's called. There's a big demand for the cockle shells too. The beach at Leigh-on-Sea is made of them, but most of them get sold and taken away. Apart from building islands, they're used to make drives and roadways. Golf courses use them to fill their drainage ditches, and for years they've been ground up to make grit for chickens. Thank you. People have been buying cockles from these sheds for over 100 years. I know a lot of things about old Essex have been knocked on the head, but because of the deal between the fisheries and the fishermen, maybe people will still be buying cockles from here in 100 years' time. Do you want one? I love this stuff. It's beautiful. We've got this great book to go with the series, and